back and thanks for staying on tonight on In Focus. The U.S. has sanctioned 2 South Africans and 2 others for allegedly playing a role in securing financial aid for terror organization ISIS. It is said that the 4 used South African banks and other financial institutions. They have now been blocked from doing business with the U.S. Here to talk to us more about this, I'm joined by Willem Els, a senior training coordinator at the Institute for Security Studies. Willem, good evening and thank you very much for your time and joining us tonight on In Focus. A South African sanctioned for terror-related transgressions. Something many people would say it's not something that we are thinking about, I suppose, on a daily. We see these terror attacks and we think it's something that is really far from us. How close is the terror activity situation to South Africa?
Good evening to you. Yes, we tend to think that it's far away. It only happens in other countries. But in the recent past, we had a case that was decided in court where the Tulsi twins were found guilty. There was a plea bargain. They were found guilty, and they are serving time for those offences. And they, in that court case, it also came out that they were members from ISIS and that they were operating in South Africa.
And are they fully operational, still recruiting in South Africa? Are these South Africans assisting them? How does it actually play out?
Yeah, unfortunately so. We see that there are other cases that are also relevant. In the recent past, there was an arrest in Klipspruit, south of Johannesburg, where, in the words of the National Commissioner, the people were linked to ISIS. And that was a cell that is currently under arrest and that is being investigated. We also had some incidents in Durban where there was a group that was arrested. Unfortunately so, it seems that the prosecution and police did not really come to the table there, and unfortunately that case was thrown out of court. But that doesn't mean that what happened there is not underlying and going on in South Africa and in our society.
Yeah. What is the role that South Africans are playing here? Is it just merely to facilitate financial transactions so that financial support can go to the various ISIS groupings throughout the world?
Yeah, we must understand that, especially into Africa, but because of our financial system that is fairly good and one of the best, if not the best in Africa, it really warrants itself and make ourselves open for these people to come and exploit it, coming from outside. In a month or so ago, there was also a terrorist, the most wanted one in Kenya at that stage, arrested in the DRC, and according to the information, he was on his way to South Africa to find refuge also in South Africa and to operate from here, from the ADF. So we see that there are different groupings that have found their way to South Africa and that are operational here. They mainly in South Africa. The conditions are very good for them to work on the finances, to gather finances, but also to send out these money to these different organizations. But also it seems to be, and also it came out in this report from the Americans, that they are also very active in terms of recruitment under the South African people.
Yeah. Well, what are the various forms of terror activity or terror attacks that one finds in the world today, and how close are we to seeing a similar attack in South Africa? For example, people have been writing about the civil unrest to say, this is something that can be exploited. We could see terrorism, terror acts beginning to come in via things like that. We see a lot of service delivery protests, that there could be players who can manipulate that situation and find ourselves having some kind of insurgency happening right here in South Africa.
You're very right. You mentioned a few of the drivers, as we call them, for this radicalization of the people in order to prepare the playing field for insurgencies to take place, very similar to what we have seen and what we're experiencing at the moment in Cabo Delgado in our neighboring country of Mozambique. So the challenge in South Africa is is everybody happy? Are we creating conditions that are conducive for these radical groups to come in and to prey on the dissent and the unhappiness of the people? So we have to go and sit down and look if we have those conditions in South Africa, because these people will only thrive and operate in areas where they are welcomed and where they have a support base that will support them in order to perpetrate these acts. The different types of terror acts, there are various different types. We saw in Uganda where there was the attack on Parliament, where the was actually taken to the Parliament, and it was detonated very near the House of Parliament. It was also detonated in front of one of the major police stations. It was detonated. There was another bomb that was detonated at a restaurant in Kampala and also on a bus. So it can take on various types of attacks. So unfortunately, that was what happened in Uganda. We see in Kenya, we still remember the attack there on the mall that took actually lasted 3 days, where many people died, and also on the DSTV hotel where there was an attack. So it can take on various forms that these people can use in order to communicate, because an act of terror is an act of communication that they use.
Now, South African soldiers, as you mentioned, currently involved there in Cabo Delgado, along with other soldiers within the SADC region. Does that give us a degree, as South Africans, of confidence that at least our army, our military, is able to deal with the degree of insurgency?
Rightly so, yeah. They form part of the SAMIM forces in Cabo Delgado, where they are countering the insurgency. Unfortunately, we also saw that one of our special forces lost his life in Cabo Delgado fighting these people. That gives us a sense of security, that there is a capability within South Africa to counter these things. One of the worrying things in South Africa is that in recent reports it became very evident that especially our intelligence gathering capability has been severely hampered, and that we need to revive that. And this is maybe a perfect opportunity for government now to focus on strengthening our instruments that we use in the fight against terror, like your intelligence, your investigation, also your prosecution of these groups.
Willem Els, we appreciate your time, and thank you very much for coming through tonight, helping us with that conversation here on In Focus. He's from the Institute of Security Studies there tonight, following the U.S. sanctioning 2 South Africans and 2 others for assisting ISIS and for procuring funding for their activities. We'll continue next.